director of Modern Warrior. What a brilliant performance.
Thank you so much.
Emmett, how did you get involved with this production?
I started working with Dominick Farinacci with this project. He had the idea to take a story of a young veteran of 3 deployments in Afghanistan, this gentleman, Staff Sergeant Jaymes Poling, to take his story and mesh it with music. And so he knew that he wanted to create a hybrid of theater and music, and he wanted a director that had the ability to sort of see his vision. And so we started to work together, firstly to develop the story, but then secondly, how does the story fit within the music? And so it became a collaborative process. It was very exciting.
So you were brought in right in the beginning.
Right in the beginning. We did a creative development workshop in April of this year where we basically put together about 20 minutes of music and theater. We brought everybody together. It was the first time that we worked together. We got into a big black box space and just kind of made it happen. We had an incredible film crew that I directed, and we put together this 20-minute sort of proof of concept, and it was so exciting. Dominick's music, his arrangements, our music director Kristen Tamber, and then the artists that he uses from New York and Cleveland and all over the world were top-notch. So this project has really grown out of a commitment to making James' story come to life with great art. And
you brought together the narrative with the music in such a beautiful way. Was there something that you drew from in terms of an experience of your own or through the theater that helped you through this process?
Sure. Well, I love music. I love jazz music especially, and I come from the world of theater, and so I knew that it didn't want to be music theater, and I knew it didn't want to be a jazz concert. So I tried to work with Dominick and James and the musicians to craft the way that it folds into itself and to sort of take a song and chop it apart. So that may have come from the theater tradition, where we're sort of injecting dialogue into the middle of a song so that there's commentary that's related to that. We also have a lot of multimedia in the show, so there's one sequence where Dom and James are doing this beautiful piece where James is talking about he has to tell his family that he's going to go to war. And what I thought would be cool would be if we could see the letters that he would have written.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it's this beautiful idea of he's there in the moment talking to his father, but we're actually fast forwarding and seeing the letters that have been written over Christmas time and from his girlfriend and letters that he wrote to his father. So using multimedia, using theater, using staging kind of makes it a hybrid, which is a very unusual type of show.
Well, it's really nice because the letters come up and the writing is very legible. So, and you're picking out really important words on that
moments,
page.
Yeah,
yes.
Those moments.
Yes.
Yeah, it was actually just I wanted to find ephemera from James's life, papers, documents, manuals, and one day he actually brought his U.S. Army bag with his boots and his jacket, and so we actually incorporated that into a show where he kind of brings out his stuff. So it brings a theatrical element to the show, but they're personal to him. It means something to him personally.
Yes, and he's still on the stage when this is all taking place.
Yes,
so it's integrated.
It's all integrated. Yes. We had to be very careful because the media is so powerful. If you put something on the screen, people will watch it.
Right.
So we had to control what the focus was. If it's Dom or James or the media, and if it's both, then they have to juxtapose each other or comment on each other.
Right, so it's a fine balance.
Yes, yeah.
Well, you pulled it off so beautifully, and I wish you so much luck in New York.
Thank you. It was a big collaborative event, and we're still working on it, and we really appreciate all of your support here in Easton and Avalon. It's been awesome.
And as one of the vets said in your Q&A afterwards, thank you for giving us hope.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, Dominick.
Hello.
It was a brilliant performance.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, this is your most current album?
Short stories.
Short stories.
Yep.
And in that in the short stories, you have a piece about soldiers. Did that influence your getting involved with Live Warrior?
Yeah, it sure did. This third track on here, Soldiers Things, it's by Tom Waits. And lyrically, you can never figure out exactly what he's talking about, but to me it was about a soldier coming back from war and dealing with readjustment into civilian life. And so I never really thought about that before. And as I was trying to learn the deeper meaning of the song so I could translate it to my performance on the horn, I wanted to meet someone who's experienced coming back from war. And through a mutual friend in Cleveland, I got to meet Jaymes.
Oh.
And the first time we talked, you know, so he's from the 82nd Airborne, combat veteran, and spent you know, over almost 3 years in Afghanistan. And so I got to hear his story, you know, in detail about the time he spent there, and also coming back home and dealing with the challenges and also the growth that he found through coming back home. So that is how our relationship started. And it's
so you were looking for meaning to interpret a Tom Waits song, and that led you to meeting Jaymes?
That's right.
Awesome.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah. We never planned to do Modern Warrior Live. I mean, this was, you know, the relationship has kept evolving, and, you know, I heard his story, said, well, this, on my side, you know, I never really paid attention to never paid attention to, you know, veterans, you know, coming back and dealing with that reintegration, other than just the sound bites, you know, you hear in the media, at least from a civilian perspective. So I was listening to his story and meeting a lot of his friends and hearing something that I haven't really heard before. And so we thought, you know, how can we share that, you know, in the first person, as Jaymes telling his own story, been so gracious, you know, to share his story with me. And the relationship just kept evolving and ultimately turned into this production, Modern Warrior, which has really, you know, impacted my life, and I think all the lives of every artist and everybody involved in Modern Warrior.
Dominick, you graduated from Juilliard, and at Juilliard you were asked to be an ambassador for jazz. And I was very surprised to read that it wasn't until 2001 that they actually had a jazz curriculum. That's
right. 2001 was
Wow.
the first class of the jazz studies program at the Juilliard School, and I was in that first class. It was a pretty special time. There were 18 of us, and yeah, what an historic, you know, moment. And yeah, Wynton Marsalis and Jazz at Lincoln Center, and so many others have, you know, done so many incredible things for our music over the past decades.
The music that we heard today, I heard some of Homeland, the show Homeland, in it.
Oh, okay.
That haunting. There was religion in the music. I mean, religion, jazz is religion, you know. But no, there was some religious overtones or undertones, or perhaps is the better word to use, and they kind of were woven really nicely in the production. You're familiar with the music in Homeland?
Of course, yeah. So I talked to the trumpet player who plays on the opening, you know, the opening theme.
Yeah.
So he's a wonderful trumpet player in L.A. And so I got to, you know, meet him last year, and I've always loved that, you know, that soundtrack. I don't think it really had much influence on this, but, you know, just his playing, I mean, it's so beautiful and soulful. And I had spent some time living in Qatar, and several times a day you'd hear a call to prayer all over the city. And you know, it's so beautiful and soulful, and there's something that in that I think really connects with all of us, you know, inside. So that was kind of the inspiration for some of the music, to kind of evoke, you know, that feeling from the region that Jaymes spent an important part of his life in.
But to me, the fundamentals of the music that you played were very religious, from a spiritual standpoint, from gospel music. How did gospel music influence you in your writing?
Sure. So a lot of the guys in the band are some of the finest musicians who play in churches in the Cleveland area where we're from. And, you know, there's such incredible talent, and, you know, gospel music in general. I mean, there's so many different genres and generations of the music. You know, it really just, you know, it's universal, you know, in terms of just that that level of talent and artistry with a great vocalist, and you know, it kind of, interestingly enough, kind of surrounds part of James's story. You know, particularly when you know, when he, you know, comes back home, and you know, growing up in the church, you know, in terms of his development from when he, you know, went to Afghanistan and came back, and how that evolved over time. You know, I think that's very important to capture, and Battle Hymn of the Republic itself, that song, I mean, you know, it's war and religion. It's all kind of the same thing in many ways, you know.
Well, it also, I don't know if the songs originated, some of the songs originated from that time, but the hymns seem to be reminiscent of what's played when people are portraying the Civil War. So that conjured up a feeling in me as well when I heard your performance.
Yeah, the story is such a timeless story. You know, it's not unique to Jaymes and his guys who served in Afghanistan. It's not unique to one specific war. It's universal and it's timeless. It's not even unique to America. So in the production, we were really focused on just getting as close to James's story as possible, in terms of just getting as familiar with it as possible, listening to every single word that he has to say, and trying to develop a whole musical, you know, a musical suite around every word that he's saying. It's not something that we're taking his ideas and kind of morphing them into something else that we think will work on stage. It's his story in the rawest form, and I think that's part of the, well, that's certainly part of the inspiration of this, and our goal to, you know, it's not about having actors portray Jaymes or anything. It's about him telling his own story, because that, hearing the story firsthand, there's no substitute for that, you know.
Well, I applaud you tremendously for your work, and I think that you became a brother of Jaymes on the stage, and I'm sure in person as well, because you're reliving his story with him and helping to share that story.
Yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been a life-changing experience for all of us, and you know, I mean, Jaymes is so articulate and well, you know, well spoken, and has the courage to, you know, do what he's doing. And beyond Jaymes, in terms of, mentioned the friends, you know, that I get to meet that he served with, and through doing these concerts, meeting all kinds of veterans from Vietnam and different wars, even World War II, met a few veterans and got to share this story with them, and it's really, I think, an important education process for, again, someone like me who doesn't have a military background and doesn't. And before I met Jaymes, I didn't really think about all this that deeply, you know, beyond what we just hear in the media, which kind of colors your perspective, the civilian perspective of veterans. So it's been incredibly impactful, and James's story is his own, and each story is unique. And as this evolves, you know, Modern Warrior, it's a, in a sense, you know, we look at it as a unique way of storytelling. So as it evolves, it's a very fluid concept in terms of bringing in other veterans and other perspectives about their experience, and using art, using the music, really brings a whole different segment of people, I think, into the room. And our goal of Modern Warrior is to get all these different walks of life in the room, different generations, different backgrounds, and ultimately for Modern Warrior to really be a conversation starter, helping to build bridges. And I think art is a great platform for that.
And I'm glad you came to the Chesapeake Bay region.
This is great, and this is only our third concert, and you know, some great folks here, you know, Al and Marty Sykes and Richard and Amy Marks. They believed in this from the beginning, and they helped to make this a reality. And you know, folks at the Avalon Theater and folks at Chesapeake Music believed in this to really, you know, Chesapeake Music really helped to make it a reality. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of supporters. And we're really, you know, excited to just have gotten our start here in Easton.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Hello, Will. How are you?
I'm doing well.
And that was an awesome performance, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all that you did.
It's my pleasure. You know, it's a great opportunity, and it's definitely something, the story that needs to be told. So I'm glad I was able to be a part.
Tell us about how you got involved with the production.
Well, I was connected with Dominick Farinacci through a mutual friend of ours named Johnny Parker. He told me that, you know, I'm a singer and there's this thing that's going on. It's, my wife is also a veteran, or my ex-wife actually is also a veteran.
Are you from Cleveland?
I am.
You are, okay.
And, you know, we just so happened to connect. He heard me sing and do the part for the, Hear the Choppers Come In, and it was like, you know, I like your voice, I like what you do with it, and kind of went from there.
So have you sung gospel songs before? Did you grow up singing gospel songs?
I did, actually. I've been singing in the church since I was about 4 years old.
Yeah.
So.
And that was very poignant when Jaymes is talking about having to go to church and then having to kill, you know, like that bridging, and your music helped kind of synthesize that, you know, because so much of what was said was so powerful, and then the music allowed us to like take that all in. And
yeah, no, I mean, certainly it's thinking of it from that perspective and the transition you're going through from being in normal civilian life to being, you know, a soldier, and that potential of I may have to take someone's life, but growing up in the church, like, this is something that I've been told is wrong. This is something that, you know, I can't imagine that spiritual warfare that you go through, but in that, knowing that, you know, God still is God, and he still forgives, and he's still going to, you know, accept you, you know, as you are, it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's what says a lot, you know, the Battle Hymn of the Republic. It really kind of speaks to that, you know, especially the one line where it says, Jesus died to make men holy, so let us live to make men free.
Oh.
You know, it says a lot. It says a lot, you know. I'm just glad I was able to do it, you know.
How are you going to be able to do all these coming performances?
Just continue to stay prayed up, try to stay rested, and you know, rest my voice and things of that sort. I'm looking forward to it. So
thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
It was a beautiful, beautiful performance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. From a small part of it, it's an incredible piece, very meaningful piece, very important piece.
And explain to us your singing of the Alleluia.
I think it comes at a place where Jaymes says that he has made a decision to leave the service, to retire, I suppose, and move on with his life. And he says that everything changed the first time he realized that he might get to grow old. And I think the Hallelujah is a lot of things. It's a thank you for the fact that he's still here. It's a moving on in his life. It's a gratefulness. I think it's a song of gratefulness and celebration, and possibly, as you said, it's possible also that he's celebrating the people who maybe don't get to grow old, you know, that he served with. So it's a definite turning point, kind of epiphany moment in the piece. I know that's the intent of it, and hopefully that's the way people feel it.
We did feel it. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Jaymes, thanks so much for your beautiful performance today. I wanted to ask you about post-traumatic, not stress disorder, because that's what's always talked about, but
post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, so it's, I know for me it's kind of the process of just putting a filter on trauma, or kind of going back and taking the opportunity to look at it in a way that people don't often do. I know that once I started feeling like things were getting better for me, it was the grieving process. Once I started getting through the grieving process, once I got out of the military, I was able to see ways in which, you know, I had this skill set now that was developed through my time in the military. And there was so much trauma tied to my time in the military that initially, you know, everybody would look at that and they'd want to group that as a whole and say, okay, well, this must be like a negative impact on the rest of your life. And once I started to see that wasn't quite the case, I was able to go back and look at all those moments again and say, okay, well, what did I learn here? What, you know, if as a society we say that there's growth in adversity, then there must be growth in combat, and there must be growth in trauma related to combat and coming home and the isolation felt. There's got to be an opportunity for positivity through all of that.
And you figured that out yourself? You didn't read something that gave you a little bit of an opening there?
I think I think I started to figure it out on my own, and then once I started going back to school, I was able to observe examples of individuals that were doing that, and then I was able to kind of learn through looking at their path in life.
Well, that's a beautiful message that you're going to just help continue onward with your production. That message, in fact, one of the gentlemen who served after your performance in the Q&A, he said something like, "Thank you for this opportunity of positive of positive talk," so you're giving hope to people. Do you realize that?
Thank you. It's something I hope that I'm doing. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there any production drama that you are calling back or looking backwards on and saying, "Oh my gosh"? I mean, had you ever even thought that you would be up on stage?
No, I never thought that I would be doing anything like this. And initially, when I first decided to do something like this, it was almost out of a sense of an obligation. But it didn't take long at all to see just how genuine the team was, how genuine Dominick was, and then I quickly grew to fall in love with this and then trust them entirely. And so like once that started happening, it was just amazing to kind of watch this take off, and now I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Isn't that beautiful?
It really is.
It's really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
And we just saw a brilliant performance of Modern Warrior Live here in Easton, Maryland. And Al, you were instrumental in bringing this production to Easton. Could you tell us about it, please?
Sure. 8 years ago we started the Monty Alexander Jazz Festival, and I began to get to know an awful lot of jazz artists, including Dominick Farinacci. And over the years, Dominick and I have talked back and forth, and I've been really intrigued by him because he's more than just a performer. He's also a creator. And so he began a couple of years ago talking to me about the possibility of developing something that turned out to be called Modern Warrior Live. And so we've kept in touch, and it included being an early investor in the production of Modern Warrior Live. And I think as a result of that, he was comfortable bringing it first to Easton after performing it in his hometown of Cleveland. And I got Richard Marks and Amy Haynes intrigued with the production, and so they also contributed. So we've here in Easton made a significant impact in the performance of Modern Warrior Live.
And the performance took place at the Avalon Theater, and the Avalon Theater is just a gem. And it seems as if it's the perfect size for a conversation to begin. A conversation that is a combination of music and drama.
Well, I think you nailed it. Avalon Theater provides both a wonderful theatrical stage, but also an intimate theater, so that this autobiographically based performance could unfold in a very telling way. And then ultimately, after the performance was over, there could be a conversation with veterans and others that I think was, in some ways, the most special thing about the production.
Indeed. One of the gentlemen who was in the audience and stayed afterwards for the Q&A said something, confided in us in a way, about his job interview with a Fortune 100, and how they said to him, "But you've killed somebody. Like, how in the world could you work for us since you've killed someone?" So much mending needs to be done for our modern warriors, don't you think?
Well, I do, and I think it's I think people who take the approach that somehow modern warriors might turn out to be liabilities simply forget that in the aftermath of World War II, men, some women, came back from having fought, having probably killed people, and then built America. So to me, the depth of experience and the depth of emotional sort of balancing that has to occur with a warrior is just very good potential for being an excellent employee.
Well, we have we thank you for bringing this to Easton, and look forward to more performances and more conversations between our vets and those of us who want to understand what they've gone through.
Right. Great. Good to be with you, Carlisle.
Thank you. Richard, the performance was brilliant. It was so moving, and I want to thank you for bringing it here to Easton, Modern Warrior Live. So if you could tell us, please, what was your impetus? How did you get involved with the production?
Sure. Friends Al and Marty Sykes mentioned there was a Kickstarter project entitled A Soldier's Story, sent me the link. I'd already been familiar. I'd participated in other Kickstarter projects in the past, so I sort of knew the crowdsourcing that goes on. I recognized the name immediately, Dominick Farinacci, trumpet player, renowned, who had appeared in Easton on a couple of occasions with the Chesapeake Jazz Festival.
Neat.
Had met him and was intrigued by the story of his establishing a friendship with Jaymes Poling, veteran served in Afghanistan, and I was just taken by the message that I gathered they were trying to impart when I first read it. So Amy and I talked about it. We agreed to make a contribution, modest as it was, but truly in my mind, and on these crowdsourcing, then for making a contribution, you get a certain award or reward, if you will. And if I remember correctly, it was that Dominick would come perhaps and perform in concert in our hometown.
Oh, nice.
But really didn't understand the full magnitude of the production that they wanted to create at that time. So initially, it was just a contribution to what appeared to be a compelling story.
And the compelling story is a story that you, I assume, really feel because you are a vet as well.
Yes, I mean, certainly having served and believing that we've reached a point in our country right now where too few people do serve. And I don't just mean in terms of in the military or in combat. I just mean in general. There doesn't seem to me to be as much shared sacrifice as there used to be. So, and also I don't believe that veterans are truly understood in what they've experienced and what it means to reintegrate as part of your community and your family when you return home.
Well, I think that you have done a service to many people for bringing the production here to Easton, and not just people here in Easton, because it's going to go to New York in January, and then hopefully it's going to go to other venues as well.
Sure. As I said, initially I didn't truly appreciate the magnitude of the production. It wasn't until probably 8 or 9 months later, after they had completed part of the production and sent us a trailer to look at. And at that time, Al and Marty and Amy and I sat down and realized that this had the opportunity to provide a greater impact throughout our community and hopefully nationally. And we sat down and formed a committee. We were very fortunate. Tony Principi joined us. Tony resides in St. Michael's, and he was the former Secretary of Veterans Affairs. So along with his support, we realized that if we could find enough sponsors to pay for the production, that we could bring it here and also be able to provide complimentary tickets to veterans, as well as raise additional funds for veteran outreach programs. So that was the real story when we sat down at Marty and Al's kitchen table and hammered it out. And Jaymes and Dominick came. They were interviewed also by Talbot Spy, Dave Whelan, and that's where it sort of started getting momentum locally.
Well, this is a ball that's really rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly. To you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to New York. The possibility then that it'll be picked up and go nationally. We had somebody in the audience on Sunday's performance is very tied into Wolf Trap.
Oh, good.
And hopes to bring it there. But I also want to really express a lot of appreciation to our veterans in our community, not just those that attended, but to the VFW, the American Legion, specifically to Royce Ball with the Midshore Recovering Veterans Group. Royce was very helpful in promoting Modern Warrior Live, but also introducing me to many other veterans groups on the entire shore, even down in Salisbury. So then I had the opportunity to share with them what the performance was about, and I think that helped build part of our attendance.
And the fact that you use art, particularly drama, as a platform to bring these different disparate groups together is a perfect venue.
Yeah, I was amazed by the turnout, but also by the responses from the audience, and it was such a moving experience too. That was shared. Even Dominick said afterwards that when they had done the 2 performances in Cleveland prior to coming to Easton, there weren't as many veterans in the audience. In our case, it was probably 30% at least, perhaps 40%. And at the very end of the performance, when Dominick plays taps, the entire audience at the Avalon for both Saturday, as you know, you were there, Saturday evening and Sunday, all rose as respectfully they should, but I think some people that have never served don't know that.
Right.
And yet everybody stood up, and Dominick said afterwards that he was even having a difficult time with that because the whole cast got very emotional when that happened. Very special.
Yes, it was very special. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome. Thank you.